In today's episode, about the rich in silicon planet Baltarus from the game Silica and trying to answer the question, is silicon-based life possible, or is it restricted to the realms of sci-fi? Life on Earth is based on carbon, an element that can form a vast number of compounds with different shapes and functions. Carbon is the backbone of organic molecules, such as proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids, that are essential for life as we know it. But what if life on Earth was based on silicon instead of carbon? Silicon is the second most abundant element in the Earth's crust, and it belongs to the same group as carbon in the periodic table. Silicon has some similarities with carbon, such as the ability to form four bonds with other atoms and to catenate into chains and rings. However, silicon also has some significant differences from carbon, such as its larger size, lower electronegativity, and weaker bond strength. These differences would have profound implications for the chemistry, structure, and evolution of silicon-based life forms. One of the main challenges for silicon-based life is the stability of silicon-silicon bonds. Unlike carbon-carbon bonds, which are relatively strong and can form long chains and complex structures, silicon-silicon bonds are weak and easily broken by water or oxygen. This means that silicon-based life would have a hard time forming stable macromolecules and polymers in aqueous environments. Moreover, silicon-silicon bonds are less flexible than carbon-carbon bonds, which limits the diversity of shapes and functions that silicon molecules can have. Therefore, silicon-based life would likely rely on other elements, such as oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, or halogens, to form more stable and diverse compounds. For example, silicon-oxygen bonds are very strong and can form long chains called silicates, which are the main components of rocks and minerals. Silicon-based life could use silicates as building blocks for their structures and metabolism. Another challenge for silicon-based life is the availability of energy sources. Carbon-based life uses various forms of energy, such as light or chemical energy, to drive their biochemical reactions and maintain their organization. Carbon-based life can also store energy in the form of high-energy bonds or gradients, such as ATP or NADH. However, silicon-based life would have fewer options for energy acquisition and storage. Silicon-based life could use chemical energy from redox reactions involving silicon or other elements, but these reactions would be less efficient and more limited than those involving carbon. Silicon-based life could also store energy in the form of silicate gradients or electrostatic potentials, but these would be less versatile and more difficult to regulate. A possible advantage for silicon-based life is the ability to withstand high temperatures and pressures. Silicon has a higher melting point and boiling point than carbon, which means that silicon molecules are more stable at high temperatures. Silicon also has a lower coefficient of thermal expansion than carbon, which means that silicon structures are less affected by changes in temperature. Therefore, silicon-based life forms could thrive in extreme environments that are too hot or too cold for carbon-based life. For example, silicon-based life could inhabit volcanic regions, or polar regions. The shape and function of silicon-based organisms would depend on their environment and evolutionary history. Silicon-based organisms could also have different functions, however, these functions would be different in terms of their mechanisms and efficiency. Photosynthesis: silicon-based life forms could not use chlorophyll or other pigments to capture light energy from the visible spectrum. Silicon is a semiconductor material that can also absorb light and generate electric currents. In fact, silicon is widely used in solar cells to convert sunlight into electricity. A silicon-based plant would have to modify its structure and metabolism to accommodate this different way of capturing light energy. One possible way silicon-based plants could use light as their energy source is by using silicon-based pigments, such as silicene or silicophene, which can absorb light in different wavelengths than chlorophyll, the green pigment used by plants. These pigments could be embedded in the membrane or the cytoplasm of the cells, where they could capture light and transfer electrons to produce ATP and NADPH, the energy carriers for the synthesis of sugars from carbon dioxide and water. This process would be similar to the light phase of photosynthesis in plants, but with different molecules and reactions involved. In either case, a silicon-based plant would have some advantages and disadvantages compared to a chlorophyll-based plant. A silicon-based plant would be able to absorb more light in the near-infrared spectrum, which is abundant in sunlight but not well utilized by chlorophyll. This would give the silicon-based plant a higher efficiency and productivity of photosynthesis. However, it would also face some challenges, such as maintaining the integrity and functionality of its silicon structures, avoiding overheating due to the conversion of light into heat, in visible wavelengths. The light absorption efficiency of crystalline silicon base has only 60% due to severe optical reflection loss in the front surface. Chemosynthesis. Silicon-based organisms could use redox reactions involving silicon or other elements to generate energy from inorganic compounds. However, these reactions would be slower and less exergonic than those involving carbon. Respiration. It's the process by which living organisms exchange gases with their environment, usually taking in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. In carbon-based organisms, respiration involves the diffusion of gases across the membranes of specialized organs, such as lungs, gills, or stomata. However, imagine an organism that is silicon-based instead of carbon-based. Silicon is a semiconductor material that can also form bonds with other elements, such as hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. How would such an organism respire? One possible way a silicon-based life form could respire is by using metal nanoparticles as its gas carriers. Metal nanoparticles are tiny particles of metals, such as gold, silver, or copper, that have unique optical and electrical properties. They can absorb and emit light of different wavelengths, depending on their size and shape. A silicon-based organism could use these nanoparticles to transport gases in and out of its cells, by changing their color and charge. The organism could use light signals to control the loading and unloading of the nanoparticles, by changing their surface plasmon resonance. Communication. Silicon-based organisms could communicate with each other using chemical signals or electrical impulses. However, they would have to overcome the interference from environmental noise or predators. Silicofungus chemoautotrophica is a fascinating mushroom-like organism that has evolved to thrive in hostile environments. It has a unique adaptation that allows it to generate energy from inorganic compounds using redox reactions involving silicon and other elements. Its dark, porous exoskeleton is composed primarily of silica and other minerals. This exoskeleton is highly conductive and allows the organism to transfer electrons efficiently during redox reactions. Silicofungus chemoautotrophica is typically found in geothermal regions, where it can take advantage of the abundant inorganic compounds present in the surrounding rocks. It has developed specialized structures called chemosynthetic organs that are capable of extracting and concentrating these compounds. Silicosaurus igneus. This fascinating creature has evolved to use silicon as its primary building block. It boasts a robust exoskeleton composed primarily of silicon compounds. This exoskeleton provides excellent protection against physical threats and helps maintain structural integrity in their environment. It has developed several other characteristics and processes that help it thrive in its environment. It has evolved a sophisticated electrochemical signaling system that enables precise communication between individuals. By generating electrical impulses and interpreting chemical signals, they can convey complex messages while minimizing interference from environmental noise or predators. Some individuals have developed a symbiotic relationship with photosynthetic microorganisms. These microorganisms reside within specialized structures on their bodies and utilize sunlight to produce energy-rich compounds that benefit both parties. The lifestyle of this organism revolves around adapting to inhabit silicon-rich environments where it can find an abundant supply of silicon-based resources. These environments could include areas with high concentrations of silica, such as volcanic regions, geothermal springs, or silica-rich soils. The exact habitat preferences and distribution of Silicisaurus igneus are still being studied, and more research is needed to gain a comprehensive understanding of its ecology. Silicon is an important element in the game Silica, published by Bohemia Incubator, for several reasons. First, silicon is the main building block of the planet Balturus, where the game takes place. The planet is rich in silica and other silicon-based compounds, which form the basis of its geology, ecology, and resources. Second, silicon is the key element for the human factions that are competing for control over the planet. They use silicon to construct their bases, vehicles, weapons, and other technologies. They also seek to harvest a rare and valuable element called balterium, which is an element with extraordinary properties, concealed beneath the silica crystals on the planet's surface. It is mined for its use as an ultradense energy source with amazing potential as well as its additional properties. Third, silicon is the essence of the alien faction that inhabits the planet. The aliens are insect-like creatures that have evolved to use silicon as their primary structural and metabolic element. They have a unique respiratory system that allows them to use oxygen or other oxidizing agents to oxidize their organic molecules and release energy. They also have a sophisticated electrochemical signaling system that enables precise communication between individuals. Silicon is therefore a vital element for both the gameplay and the lore of Silica. It creates a dynamic and immersive environment where players can experience a crossover of FPS and RTS genres, each true to its respective genre. It also provides a rich and original setting for a sci-fi story that explores the potential diversity of life forms in the universe. The presence of silicon-based life on Earth would have a profound impact on the ecology and geology of the planet. It is a fascinating possibility that challenges our understanding of the nature and origin of life. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories just like this.